How much do you know about this fan favorite? Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. It's Nico here from Yoseka, and today we're going to be talking about the iconic Mildliner highlighters. So these highlighters really took the world by storm when they were released around 15 years ago, and they still remain as one of the most popular stationery items today. They're super popular in the bullet journaling community, they're super popular in like the academic setting for note-taking and things like that. So today we're going to go through, talk a little bit about the product history, swatch all of the highlighters that are currently out as of 2026, and then we'll do a little smudge test, go over some ways to use them, and that'll be this video. So to give a little background on Mildliner, they're made by Zebra, which is a Japanese company. Before Mildliners were put out, when people thought of highlighters, they actually only thought of those very like bright classic colors like the neon pink, yellow, green, you know, that we're all familiar with. And Zebra had started toying with this idea of more like muted pastel colors in the late 90s, and they put out a couple of products. So none of those pastel products did very well because a lot of people responded saying that they kind of defeated the point of highlighters, which were meant to make things like stand out and really pop. So the muted colors were not bright enough for people. But eventually Zebra put out the Mildliners in 2009, and the mix of cute colors, a simple body design, and cuteness of the packaging really made them take off. So the big success of the first set of Mildliners actually marked kind of like a shift in the aesthetic world of stationery, where more muted pale tones started to come in. And as we've seen, these trends have only continued on as like bullet journals. That soft aesthetic really took root in the stationery community. So today Zebra has 8 sets of 5 Mildliners. So there's a total of 40 colors, but actually in the US, technically there's 41, which we'll talk more about later. The 5 color sets are the bright color set, calm color set, cool and refined, deep and warm, the friendly color set, gentle color set, mild and fluorescent color set, and then the natural color set. So this natural one is actually where we get that 41st color, which is this copper color. So you are able to get all of the highlighters as singles as well. You don't have to get them in the pre-existing 5-packs, which makes it really easy to kind of mix and match and make your own pack if you have an aesthetic that's a little bit different than the sets that Mildliner puts out. And it's also a great way to like buffer your collection if you don't want to own a million of them like I do. But also regarding earlier when we said that there were actually 41 colors, so when they released the neutral and natural sets in Japan, what was released was the natural set, which featured these 5 colors, including this dusty pink. However, when they brought this set to America, they released it under the name the neutral set, and they swapped out this dusty pink color for this more coppery color. So this is the neutral set that you can purchase in the US. Obviously, a lot of retailers here carry both the Japanese and US versions, so you will be able to find both, but that's just a funny little fact about the Mildliner sets. So let's take a look at the pen itself. So taking a close look at them, we see that it has the Mildliner logo here in the middle. Here it says the color in Japanese, and then down here it's like the barcode, SKU, all that. And you'll notice that this pen has 2 caps on either side. So taking off this thicker cap that has like the color on the top, you'll see that we have a chisel tip on this end. So this is a feature that's pretty similar to all other highlighters. Most of them come in that chisel tip. And then actually on the other side is a fine tip. So the chisel and fine are both the exact same color for every pen. They also have a clip, which makes them super easy to clip onto like pockets, if you have a little notebook cover, things like that. And another fun thing that Mildliner does is they usually stick to this more simple body as we saw earlier, but they do have some fun limited edition bodies that they'll put out once in a while with motifs like flowers or collaborations with artists. And those will usually come in the same, a pre-existing color set, but just with those like motifs on them that make the body a little bit more fun and interesting. After the success of the original Mildliner highlighters, Zebra has kind of branched out since then and taken the same colors as their iconic Mildliner selection and made some fun iterations of the product. For example, these brush pens I've got here. So let's take a look at these. So the body on this one looks around the same as the Mildliner does. And then as you can see on one end, we actually have a brush tip here. And then on the other side, we have the same fine tip that's on the other side of the highlighter as well. They also came out with these limited edition Mildliner fine pens. And so these are actually more akin to like a fine liner. So let's take a look at these. So these are also dual-ended, and on one side, it's a fine bullet tip. So the tip on this one is actually a little bit harder, I would say, as compared to the fine tip that's on the brush pen and the highlighter pen. And then if we take off the other cap, here we have an extra fine liner tip as well. Another fun product that Zebra has put out is actually bottles of ink meant for you to use with their brush pens. So the Mildliner line is of course kind of popular for these like softer pastel-y colors, and so when they made these ink bottles, it was actually with the intention of being able to take the brush pen and dip it into a slightly different color. So for example, with this yellow one, you could get like the orange ink and you dip it, and then as you write, you get like a fun gradient out of it. So that's another fun product they also have put out. All right, we're also going to talk about some fun uses for these Mildliner highlighter pens, but first we're going to swatch all the colors so you guys can see what they look like. All right, so that's all of our swatches done. As you can see here, we did them in order, and then here we have the natural set that was released in Japan along with the neutral set so that you guys can see like the different palettes that were included in both of those sets. But yeah. All right, next we're going to jump into just a little smudge test. Just since a lot of people use these as highlighters, we wanted to kind of see how they do with some different types of pens, especially going over top of them as you would use a typical highlighter for. So I've got here an MD notebook, which is what we're going to be testing it on. And as for pens to test these on, I've got 3 different types of pens. So first up, we've got gel pens. Here I have the Zebra Sarasas in the Nano, which is 0.3, the Clip, which is the 0.5, and then the 1.0 size clip. So these 3 are all black gel ink. They're just different sizes of like tips. Up next, we're going to do a little test on ballpoints. So here I've got the Pilot Acro in 0.3 and 0.5, and then we have the Zebra Blend in a 0.7, just so we can have 3 sizes to test it with. The difference between gel pen ink and ballpoint pen ink is that ballpoint is actually oil-based, whereas gel is water-based. So that's why it'll be kind of interesting to see how they perform between those two. And then third, we have fountain pens. So here I have the Sailor 1911 Casual L Stables in extra fine, medium, and broad. So these are filled with Sailor's Black fountain pen ink. So let's see how these all perform. So we'll be testing all of these with the mild pink, which is a very iconic color. So let's start with the gel pens. All right, so I just wrote out with Gel Sarasa Nano 0.3 millimeter. We're gonna let it dry for around 10 seconds, and then we'll go over it with this. So yes, there was quite a bit of smudging. Let's move on to the 0.5. And also between these, I'm going to make sure I get all of the old ink off of the nib of the Mildliner just to make sure our tests are fair. All right, we've got the Clip 0.5 now. And now we're doing the 1.0 millimeter size. All right, we'll talk about all the results at the end. So next we're going to do the ballpoint pens. First up, the Pilot Acro in 0.3 millimeters. And we'll let these dry for around 10 seconds as well. Okay, now the Pilot Acro 0.5 millimeters. All right, and then finally we're going to test the Zebra Blend in the 0.7 millimeter size. All right, finally we're going to test our fountain pens, starting with the extra fine. Next up is the medium. All right, and then the broad. All right, so that is our tests done on the 3 types of pens. So let's take a little bit of a closer look at them. So we can see on the gel pen one, there was quite a bit of smudging on all 3. And again, we waited around 10 seconds after finishing writing just to let it dry a bit. The 0.3 was the least smudgy, just given its small size, with the 1.0 actually being surprisingly less smudgy than the 0.5. And then moving down to ballpoint, so these are our oil-based inks. We have 0.3, 0.5, 0.7. The 0.7 was a little bit smudgy, but the Pilot Acros performed really well with that 10-second dry time with almost no smudging on those too. Finally, on our fountain pen ones, these all did pretty bad as expected given they're so water-based. It was pretty smudgy on all 3, so I would say either wait a little bit, like give your pens a longer drying time if you're using a water-based one, or you can also switch to oil-based like ballpoint pens as well for your note-taking and things like that if you're doing quick highlighting right after writing. So yeah, this kind of segues into some of the ways that people use these. So a big one is going to be note-taking, like writing out notes. The chisel and fine tip give you a great way to make some cute little like note spreads, do some calligraphy, things like that super easily. And another community that we see a lot of usage of Mildliners in is going to be the bullet journaling community. I would say this is probably because of these cute, like gentler colors that these come in, and also because of the range of things you can accomplish with that chisel and fine tip. There's so much inspiration out online. A lot of people have come up with fun other color combinations based on the pre-existing sets that are out there. A lot of people have fun ways to use the chisel to make like little boxes, titles, things like that, colors that match well together. So yeah. To conclude this video, Zebra's Mildliners are definitely one of the most cherished highlighter pens in the stationery community, and as we've seen, they're super loved for their fun color sets, the more muted aesthetic that they give, and we've seen them expand now into the brush pens, into the fine liner pens. So yeah, these are definitely a beloved item with a long history. Thank you everyone so much for watching today. We hope it was helpful. Comment down below if you own any Mildliners, what your favorite set is, or if you've gone ahead and made your own set by purchasing the singles. We'd love to hear what combinations people have, what they're using them for. So yeah, let us know below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.